So the reason, so as you might remember, you're part of our NR30. We were really happy to add you to the list because one of the things with the NR30 is like we have like a lot of like the big wigs, the people that you might know, Tim Cook and I don't know, just some of the top AR people who like have like multi-billion-dollar companies, but we also want to highlight the up and coming founders. And that's why I was really excited to profile you, because like what you're doing with Cleanbox is like very unique to the new challenges of the pandemic. And I can just tell you, like, I'm not ashamed to admit this publicly, as a germaphobe, myself as a germaphobe, going to all the various, conferences, whether it's CES or AWE in Santa Clara, wherever I go, I'm always freaking out a little bit about trying on public, VR headsets and AR headsets, because even if they're wiped down in between usages, like I'm kind of like, your face, collects a lot of oil and bacteria and dirt. And so I've always freaked out about that. So, when I found out about your company, I was really excited. And can you just give me, like, I'm pretty sure you started before all this madness we've been experiencing for the past year. So can you guys just tell me, like, give me like the story of like how you got started?
Yes, absolutely. We did start before the madness, and honestly, we started, our first patents were filed about 6 years ago. So we really started this believing in the industry and just seeing how, immersive technology and having a vision for how it could really impact not just entertainment experiences, but really education and engagement and remote training and so many business applications. And when we looked at that and we thought about people sharing hardware that sits on your face and head, that is very sensitive in terms of electronics and how it's built, there was a problem that we saw really as a barrier of entry. And what we wanted to do was address the risk mitigation point of it and do it in a way that was safe, that was easy, it was consistent and reliable. And that's really where Cleanbox came from. Having a vision for what XR could do potentially for businesses and industries around the world, and then thinking about all the problems that we're in within our capacity to solve. Hygiene was one of them, and we're really excited about how the company started with that concept. But we've taken that proprietary engineering and we've really branched down far beyond XR. Again, continuing to have our base and our roots there, but being able to solve additional B2B business problems that have to do with hygiene. And COVID just happens to kind of highlight or put the dot on the exclamation mark, if you will, of the importance of hygiene in any kind of shared objects, electronics, or other things.
So now you said you had the patent like 6 years ago, but when did you actually release your first like piece of hardware, your first product?
Well, we started the patenting and R&D process back then, but I think our first commercial product was about 2 years ago. 2.5 years ago, we started the business part of it, where we knew that we had products that we could put on the market that had gone through testing, that had been lab validated. We spent plenty of time, a couple of years, really tweaking our engineering so that we could provide hospital level, which is basically log 5 and greater, hygiene in the shortest amount of time possible. So if you notice for our CX series, all our cycle times are 60 seconds. Because we know it's important for vendors to have high throughput. And so you need to be able to reach, that quality assurance level, but do it in a way that makes business sense. Okay. And so that was really the important part to us. And then kind of secondary, but also in some ways equally important, have that product look good and not conflict with your own branding. And so that's really what the look and feel of Cleanbox has been, and a trusted brand with a lot of companies.
And just give me a sense of like, were you already involved in the VR AR space? Were you experimenting? Were you an enthusiast? Is this something that like you were kind of just using the technology as a fan, and then you decided, this is like a solution that was needed? Like, how did this actually, like, what's the story of like, what do they call it? The napkin? Like, was there like the napkin idea?
Well, a little bit. I have a background on the entertainment side of things, and so does my co-founder, who's our CTO. He worked in gaming, I worked in film, but because of that, we had a very high sensitivity to what the entertainment process gives the end user. And that is that sort of sticky component of taking either an experience or a set of information, and sharing it with the end consumer in a way that they will adopt quickly, that they will love, they will want to redo time and time again. So several years ago, I was writing for a Hong Kong-based think tank about changes in technology and how they were beginning to influence global consumer behavior, and thus, of course, have to influence businesses and their approach to their own products, right? And so I had this idea. I have a relationship with the Smithsonian Institution in DC. I thought immersive technology would be a brilliant answer to sharing their 155 million objects of content, and it started there. When Cleanbox was developed, it was one of many patents that my co-founder and I filed, and it was a solution to a problem that honestly didn't really fully exist yet. But we looked at it again as a barrier of entry. How can we get rid of this problem? Because we believe in the opportunity, both short-term and long-term, so much, and it turned into a really brilliant business.
And so, but I mean like on the ground, meaning like, were you like, you're working with think tanks, you're coming up with all these ideas. You mentioned the Smithsonian, but I mean, like, was there like I guess what would you call it, an epiphany moment where you were actually, I don't know, at a conference, or dealing with one of the companies? Like, what was the moment where you realized, wait, this is something that I don't see, and I think the space needs it? Like, what was that moment?
Well, the moment really was because we were, my co-founder and I were already immersed in the space. We were both firm believers in the technology. We were both users of it and saw the potential both in the short term, the near term, and the long term. But it really came down to the fact that, Smithsonian is a quasi-federal government, entity. And so we had to think of all the, the stopping points, and looking at the large companies. I don't know if I guess I can use the word sexy, right? The technology itself of immersive technology is very sexy. Hygiene is not. It's not generally thought of in that way. And so I think because of that, the focus of a lot of people in the XR space was really content creation. How can we make an experience that is phenomenal and out of this world? Not that we didn't think about that ourselves. We are all about the experience. But we also thought about the operators, really, and thinking, okay, what are the things that take an experience from just a fanboy or fangirl to another level, where the entire population is going to say, okay, there's no reason why I wouldn't do this, and there's no reason why I can't fall in love with it. And that's really when the business side of the hygiene component, also seeing that there was no real, nobody else was really caring that much about this part of it. We knew that was need that we could meet.
And so, just I feel like I might have just jumped into all of this really quickly. I feel I need to do there's this common thing on Clubhouse that they often do called resetting the room. So just we're talking to Amy Hedrick, the CEO and co-founder of Cleanbox. And Cleanbox is a company that basically, I'm going to say this really in layman's terms, maybe you can flesh it out, but basically produces hardware solutions that allow you to quickly, seamlessly, and easily clean or disinfect the AR headsets, VR headsets, for everything from, I guess, enterprise solutions to conference solutions. Do I have that right? Am I?
Yeah, okay. Absolutely. We specialize in UVC surface decontamination at a hospital level, and we do it in a short cycle time. That's our specialty. That's our engineering, and it is eco-friendly. It is no toxins, no heat, no liquids, so it is absolutely safe for the most complicated electronics. And that was our focus. Do the hard job first, and then of course we branched out in addition to the XR space.
So that was actually one of my main questions when I was looking at your company was, a lot of these in the AR space particularly, there are a lot of because VR is pretty simple. You just have a pair of goggles basically. But with with AR, you have all these different solutions, wave guides and everything, and just, the lenses are treated in different ways. And so my first question was would this kind of interfere or modify or change in even subtle ways, some of the lenses and how they operate. So you're saying there's no impact at all on the lenses. Is that the case?
Yeah, absolutely. And we've we've tested with several of the top 3 HMD manufacturers, both on the VR and AR side. And we do have some anonymized wet lab testing results that we have on our website with the white paper, collaborative white paper on UVC hygiene, which, to be honest, it's only 29 pages, but it is a little bit tech heavy for those who are not really prone to read it. But we do, provide that data. So UVC is a very specific wavelength of light. And the thing that makes it so effective at decontamination is that it doesn't exist naturally in the atmosphere. So what it does is it disrupts the DNA and RNA strands of contagions. But it's a very short wavelength of light, and it has a short rate of impact. So because of that, it's actually fairly safe for use. So the way that we do it is for the maximum impact in terms of killing contagions, and the safest way possible. So you're correct, and that's a long way of saying you're absolutely right. It doesn't negatively impact these special lenses or electronics.
Now, remind me, UVC is ultraviolet what?
It's ultraviolet C wavelength. So ultraviolet light can be in different. There's UVA, UVB, and UVC. And if you want to put it simply, think of UVA and UVB as like the sun and a tanning bed, right? So we already know what the impact of those wavelengths of light are on like plastics and glass and other types of materials. But UVC is very different in that aspect. And part of that reason that that's different is because it is a short wavelength of light. So it has to be recreated artificially to exist on Earth. And when it is recreated artificially, traditionally it's been done in mercury bulbs. The way we use it now is in LEDs, and that eliminates a number of the negative components associated with mercury bulbs. And we also can choose the wavelength of light. There's no ozone emission, so there are a number of reasons why we've chosen to develop our technology around this type of form factor. But we can do it in a way that is highly effective to kill the contagions in cycle times that don't ever impact electronics.
Okay, so now here's now I'm going to get to some hard questions. So now I would imagine that with all of these conferences and events and, just so many different, variations of headsets, coming out on the market every day, that you probably looked at the landscape, let's say, 2019 and just said, wow, our growth potential is almost unlimited. And then you have this situation where, okay, now everyone's concerned about germs even more, but there are no events. So I'm just curious, how have you guys, you and your team, how have you kind of navigated this kind of thing where it's we need you, but the volume of events and public facing opportunities to demo what you're doing is kind of limited now because of the pandemic?
Well, there are a couple of ways to answer that question. I would say the first way is that we're not just limited to events. That's the most public-facing, consumer-facing side of XR, right? Of virtual and augmented reality is these events, which we all love because they're very exciting and interactive. But you're right, there aren't a lot of them. That has not impacted our business, and I think in that sense we're fortunate. And that's because there are so many other applications of XR specifically. Besides the other products that our company supplies. But if we want to stick to XR for just a second, I would let you know that we work in multiple industries, from government to aerospace to manufacturing to entertainment to healthcare. We're very, very active in all of those spaces, and there are phenomenal use cases of virtual and augmented reality in each of those spaces. Now, they might not be as publicly apparent, because some of those organizations maybe, don't necessarily share their data, and some of it's still, in development. Some hospital systems, for example, are more proactive or forward-thinking than others. But it exists out there, and I would say, without patting ourselves on the back too much, that we've actually helped keep a lot of these training programs for enterprise alive during COVID. I can tell you, for example, there's a hospital in California that has continued. They have never stopped their virtual reality pain management program, and they treated over 1,000 patients this summer during peak COVID time, using Cleanbox, because they were able to safely do it, and not only safely do it, but convince their patients that it was safe to do it. And that makes me really happy.
A quick question. So now, I have like other pandemic related questions, but I just, for my own germaphobe assurance. So like, let's say I'm at a conference, right? And some, sweaty, greasy guy puts on a HoloLens 2, and then he takes it off, and then the display person pops it in, a Cleanbox device, runs it through. I think you said it was 60 seconds, right? Am I right on 60 seconds? 60 seconds process, 60-second process. And then they take it out. But then they still have to, I guess, wipe down, like it doesn't remove everything, right? You have to still wipe down the oil and grease and moisture and all that stuff, right?
Well, that's a great question, because there's a second component to our products that we provide, which is a textile nanocoating. And what it is, it's a hydrophobic water-based spray that you can spray on a one-time thing, or once every 6 months or 8 months, on any kind of soft textiles that are on the headset. So if you have foam or Velcro, for example, or any kind of fabric, you can actually spray it down, and it makes it hydrophobic. What that does is, of course, keep the moisture at the surface of that soft material and makes it that much easier to dry. So our CX series has an internal fan system as well that continues to blow any sort of moisture that might be sitting at the top of that headset off, and it evaporates. So we actually work with Black Box VR, which is a gym, which you might be aware of, and they use our products as well, with the nano coating, as well as the drying cycle and so on. So what it does, because it's a hydrophobic, it's an oleophobic as well. It helps keep oils and moisture from seeping into those areas. Now, if somebody comes in with, a kid comes in with, let's say, peanut butter on their hands, and they smear it on the headset, well, you're probably going to have to wipe that peanut butter off.
Right.
There are always exceptions to those rules, but we've worked very, very hard. Again, our goal as a company has been to allow that end user to have the most confident, comfortable, and exciting experience ever. And we're just doing our small part in that process.
And now, so, like there are like these, I'm forgetting what reality show or MTV. There's a show where like they go into hotel rooms or whatever, and they use the black light device. So my question is, so like, would your device hold up to that? Like, is what I would see under like the horrible stuff I would see when I point a black light at like let's say someone with a dirty bum sits down on a bed, and then 5 minutes later I use the black light. Would your solution eliminate the ability to pick anything up? I know that's a weird question, but I'm just, again, these are germaphobe questions that I've been wondering about for a while.
Not a weird question at all. And without going into the specifics of different types of light and how they impact what you can actually visually see, just a reminder that it is always hard to talk about invisible things, right? Mm-hmm. Germs are invisible. UVC light is invisible. We're talking about two invisible things. That being said, though, there are ways that we are working to better support our customers and say, hey, we want to make sure this UVC light's working. Well, here's a dosimeter, for example, which is a piece of it's basically a piece of paper that reacts to certain wavelengths of UVC light. We can say we use this particular wavelength, 265 to 270 nanometer wavelength. Here's how you know it's working. Watch the reaction to the UV light. You can see that it's impacting that. So we're making it as simple as possible for the end user that really just wants some sort of visual reassurance. But there's a bit of understanding how the tech works in the first place to really make it an easy experience. So, we're doing our best to, educate. I have done a number of, panels, Johns Hopkins, APL, XR Symposium, for example, where I walk through the whole process of UVC, how it works, when it works, what's required to kill contagions, etc. That's very, could be complicated and not so simple, and people don't necessarily have time to hear that. One thing that we are working on at Cleanbox is a series of YouTube videos that are maybe 2 minutes, 3 minutes maximum each, where we go through various concepts of UVC light, when it works, how it works, and try to simplify it as much as the example you just shared.
Okay, so now let's get to the germ or the virus that's on everyone's mind, COVID-19. So now when this came about, and I on your website, I see, you specifically, mention it. And my question was, and perhaps this is, on the website and I just didn't see it. But my question was, did you guys like specifically test, like, did you go through specific COVID-19 testing to make sure, or are you just using general protocols that kind of allow, COVID-19 to fall in your general, germ removal protocol?
No, I appreciate the question. And absolutely, we did our own COVID testing. Not ourselves. We actually tapped into my entire database of contacts. And I will tell you, it was not easy to find a lab that could actually test for us. Because if you want to actually test against SARS-CoV-2, that requires a biohazard level 3 laboratory, not a level 2 or 1. So you have to go to a BL3 and above. We were fortunate enough to be able to get into a BL3 lab where they had SARS-CoV-2. We submitted a couple of our products. We did testing against it, and we did it on N95 masks. And the reason we did it on a couple of things, a regular flat surface as well as multiple layers of an N95 mask. Both were inoculated with the virus. They were tested according to the protocol that was in place, and then they were evaluated afterwards. And that's why we can confidently say, yes, we know that UVC light can kill a number of contaminants based on a number of factors, but we know our engineering, Cleanbox engineering, kills COVID-19 on surfaces and textiles and multiple layers of masks.
Okay, all right. That's I'm assured. I feel assured. So I guess moving forward, like, what is, like, from your perspective, like, you've been dealing with, you said, you have various private clients, you're dealing with government agencies, semi-governmental agencies, but I know you're also dealing with, just regular industry folks. Like, what is if, like, either it's anecdotal or just your analysis, what are you hearing, like, in terms of getting back out there? And because the reason I'm bringing this up is because one of, as someone who's been covering VR and AR for years now, like, one of the main ways, like, not just new, I guess, businesses and the consumer public get in touch with this kind of stuff and learn to kind of adopt it is by trying it. If you can't try these things, it's basically you're stuck. If you can't just keep watching videos and say, oh wow, that looks cool. At some point you have to try it. So what are you hearing from some of the industry people as to, kind of like this giant pause we're going through?
Well, you touched on a really important point, and I have always said entertainment is kind of like that gateway drug, right? It's the gateway to allowing you that new experience of XR. I probably shouldn't refer to it that way anymore, but I still believe, though, like you're saying, it's that hands-on experience, that immersive experience that you have to understand to convince you that this is something special. There is no question that location-based virtual reality entertainment has been severely impacted. There are a range of impacts. I think a lot of it has depended on where in the world they are, and then even in the United States, where in specific states they are. We have some clients, for example, that use Hologate and other types of VR entertainment, and some of them have remained open for the majority of the pandemic. Now, that could be because of their location, their size, a number of factors. But one thing I would like to say is that we've worked very, very hard to not only actually protect their customers by providing real-world healthcare-level decontamination, but providing the marketing messaging as well that reassures the clients that, hey, it's actually safe to do this. I hope, and I believe personally, this is my personal opinion, that people really want to get out and have experiences. I mean, you have people that are home and have been in quarantine, or they've had limited social interaction. You want to get out and you want to go to do something that's not home. You want to try a new experience. If you've got kids, you're probably like, please get out of the house and go do something else, right?
Right.
Please try one of these experiences. And what I would like to think is that Cleanbox can really help LBEs and FECs as they start to open back up. Not just providing real safe solutions, but providing the confidence that their consumers have to come back and say, you know what, I'm not afraid to bring my children here because I see that they've taken extra precaution in a way that's been validated to kill these very strong contagions.
Okay, now maybe an ugly question, but I want to talk money. So like, one, did you get uh, VC or otherwise angel startup funds to start this? That's my first money question. I have a few, but that would be my
Yeah,
first.
money questions. No, actually, there's not. We were privately, our seed money was private money.
Okay, all right. And the other one is a little bit more, I guess, grassroots. So let's say I'm a VR cafe owner and I have like a VR cafe somewhere in Brooklyn and I've got like 20 headsets and I want to deploy this solution. Like, am I even able to like, are you only dealing with like the big firms, or can I get this? And if so, what's my price range?
Well, we have our MSRP, which is not published, but it's fairly well known.
Mm-hmm.
We have, and to be honest, I won't mention prices here because we have several products on the market. They all range in price.
Gotcha.
But that being said, we work with large companies and small companies. We also work with charities. We've worked with a range of charities, from either social charities to they're actually homeless charities that are somehow using immersive technology in their training or so on. So it's important to us as a company and as a small team that we meet people at their needs. I can tell you that COVID has affected most of the people in our company in some way or another, whether it be they've gotten sick themselves personally, they've had very close friends get sick or die, family. So for us, yes, we are a business. Yes, we operate as a business, and that's what makes us successful. But our team itself is very much focused on the people that we can impact and better help. So for a company like this, yes, absolutely. Reach out to us, and we will do our absolute best to get you the product that you need and work with you at your level. That being said, I will just mention that we are a made-in-the-U.S. company, so our supply chain in that sense has not been interrupted. So we are, or not impacted in a way that we can't deliver product. We can, and we are. So we are fully in motion.
Where are you guys based, by the way?
Our headquarters are in Nashville, where I am right now. Our manufacturing and R&D is in California. And then we have team members around the world, which is exciting.
Now, when you say California, do you mean Silicon Valley? Do you mean LA? Like, what do you mean?
I mean Southern California, San Diego.
San Diego.
San Diego County.
Okay. So one of the things, when we were, going through the profile process with Next Reality 30, one of the things I noticed about you is you're not stiff, you're not all serious. You like to have fun. You seem like a very fun CEO. And so my question to you is like, what are you playing with in VR and AR? Like, what is it that is exciting you? Just moving away a little bit from Cleanbox and just like from an end user perspective, like what are you excited about?
Oh, well, that's a good question. You're making assumptions that I have a lot of free time, which I don't. I will have to say, though, that my niece and nephew have really turned me on to some of the better games in VR, frankly, because they like to kind of steal my headsets and play around with them. So if there are any really good scores that you see under my name, it's probably my nephew, not me.
Gotcha.
But that being said, to be honest, one of my very first VR experiences remains one of my favorite experiences, and that is Tilt Brush. I like to do a lot of things. I have a love for art. As a painter and so on. So I found that program absolutely hugely impactful, and I have to say that of all the games and experiences, whether it be swimming with dolphins or traveling to another place or shooting guns or playing Fruit Ninja as a simplified version, that remains one of my favorite experiences because it's immersive, it's creative, and it's your final product is fully within your own hands.
And then what about in the realm of AR?
Well, I like little games like Angry Birds. I still find that fun in AR. I actually like the enterprise applications for AR. Some of the stuff that city planning, for example, in augmented reality is phenomenal. I think the best use cases for the world lie in the way healthcare is using AR. So a little bit mixture of VR and AR. Some of our clients are surgeons, and they use, for example, augmented reality and virtual reality to scan people's brains ahead of surgery for brain tumor removal, for example, and they're able to better increase the odds of that patient's survival and recovery time. And so I don't personally use those programs because, unfortunately for everyone, I'm not conducting brain surgery on anyone. But I think the passion behind the XR space really comes from some of those experiences.
Okay, so this wouldn't be a Next Reality Chat unless I got into the area of rumor and gossip. So here's my next question is, yeah, as someone who works with a lot of these headset companies, and you're I guess my assumption, perhaps wrong, my assumption is that to some degree you're working in tandem with at least some of them to like help make sure you're adhering to their specifications and their needs. Have you seen anything on the horizon? You can tell us about the Apple headset you've seen. You can tell us about the Magic Leap 2 headset that you see that's supposed to come next year. You can tell us about any of that stuff.
Well, I don't want to get in trouble. You're absolutely right. We do work closely with a lot of these companies, and I don't want to get in trouble with any of them for those reasons. But that being said, I will say that let's go back to your one of your original questions. Why did I get into this in the first place? Why? Because I saw that the promise of XR was finally the ability of XR was finally catching up to the promise. And I continue to see that. I feel that entertainment has done the world a favor in a lot of ways because they've allowed a range of consumers, from people that were gamers already to even end consumers that had no idea what is this thing that I'm sticking on my head. And I think it's done us a huge favor because it's made the consumer engaged in the XR process. And that has forced businesses, forced might be a generous word, but it has inspired businesses to say, hey, here's an opportunity. Let's continue to invest in this technology. So I am very excited about what I'm going to see in my new, my next AR headset, my next VR headset too. Even when even I guess the one that I use the most is my Quest 2. It's very easy to travel with and carry around and put on, and it's reliable, and I like that. And I think that experience, the best experience there is just going to get better in the next iteration.
And if you, I'm sorry, I hate to be so direct, but I have to. If you had seen the Apple device or the Magic Leap device, could you tell us?
Well, I couldn't tell you, no.
Okay, all right.
A direct answer to a direct question.
Okay, all right. Okay, I'm gonna, I guess with that, I'm gonna kind of wrap up. Is there any, just on the horizon, like, I think like with the pandemic, one of the things that a lot of insiders, friends of mine, we've been discussing is how this is, the initial kind of movement was toward remote, video, like using that as kind of like this virtual meetings platform. And things like the VR conference for Burning Man, which I participated in, have really been kind of like mind-blowing and groundbreaking. In fact, I did like Qualcomm had a briefing, like a press briefing a couple of days ago, and it was using spatial, and it was all in VR, and it was amazing. I mean, if anyone's familiar with spatial, you're an avatar, and it was just amazing. And I'm also seeing like a lot of implementations with AR. So I'm just curious, like just moving forward, like kind of wrapping up, like just give me the landscape. How do you see all of this? You said you feel like its time has finally come, immersive technology. So how do you see this playing out over the next, let's say, 24 months? Like, what do you see in terms of its role with not just consumers, but businesses?
Well, to qualify my statement in terms of its time has come, I saw that 6 years ago, and you can definitely see a difference in technology from 6 years ago to today. So I should say that I see the vision of it being impactful in a permanent way for a number of industries. That being said, I think the pandemic has had a lot of interesting impacts. It has shifted so many businesses and so many consumer ideas of what immersive technology might even mean. If you look at anything from a Zoom call to other interactive, videos, I don't think that that's the representation of the future, to be honest with you. Again, my personal opinion, so if I can separate myself from official company statement for a second, I don't necessarily see that that's what's going to engage a consumer audience and make them think, okay, XR is a world changer and the next best thing. But what I have seen is a lot of these platforms experiment in ways that maybe they were a little bit too cautious with before. And if you look at XR events that happened in VR in a headset, or they had like a you could engage in a headset or on your laptop. Look at the experiences that happened in March. Look at experiences that happened in August. You talked about Birdie Man, and look at the experiences that are happening even now, which are kind of a mix of 2D, 3D, and so on. I think people are the industry is being forced to evolve faster than is comfortable for a lot of companies, and I think that's a fantastic thing. So what I hope for is that, as people leave their homes, after, once people are allowed to, and, they're out there, they're living their best life again, and, interacting with other people, I don't think that they're going to go back to thinking of immersive tech in the same way. At least that's my hope. And I hope that means that they're going to look for something better. And this has given a lot of developers time to catch up and to create something.
So, Amy, I just want to say I'm really, 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 I'm not just saying this, as like a media person. I really am happy you exist, because you and your company exist, because I'm serious. Like so just as like someone who has demoed not a million, but hundreds of VR and AR headsets, your solution is what I've been hoping for so long. Someone taking a little cloth and just wiping down the device. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's just not good enough. And so this high-tech solution is like a godsend. And I hope we can all, get back to a situation soon where we're able to, once again, be out in the field at events, and VR cafes and that kind of thing. And like, using your device, not just in private settings and very focused settings, but also kind of like in, massive settings where like, hundreds and thousands of people are, needing it,
Absolutely. I agree with that too. I mean, that is part of it's amazing. It's an amazing thing to have, home alone, but also interactive. And I agree with you. Part of the thing was I stopped trying some VR experiences after a while unless that person had a Cleanbox. Or sometimes I'd go to events at the end of the night after everyone left and the doors were closed. All of the vendors would come bring their headsets over and like, hey, can we clean these 500 headsets in your Cleanbox? And I said absolutely, as long as I can try your experience right after. So yes, we are very excited to be part of this community, and thank you so much for having me on here. It's been my pleasure. You were fun to talk to. Thank you for not asking me too many difficult questions. I'll be prepared next time.
Now we'll save the really tough questions for next time. Amy, thanks again for joining us. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
All right.